Hey guys, it's Choco the Chocobo here, and in this episode I wanted to talk to you about neutral abilities and kind of neutral creeps. And kind of to break down the episode, number one, I'm going to tell you why that's important. Number two, I'm going to actually go down kind of the general idea of like what you can do and what you should be looking out for. And then I'm going to actually go down the actual creep lists. So the first thing, why is it important? Well, in the game of Dota, unlike other games like League of Legends, namely, the game has a certain emphasis on microing, and there are some heroes that really take advantage of this. These heroes are Chen, who has the ability of Holy Persuasion, Enchantress, who has the Enchant ability, and then of course you can technically put Helmet Dominator on anyone and you can start dominating creeps, and these skills actually allow you to directly control one of these units, like so. So every now and then you'll run into one of these neutral guys, and you should be aware of what they do. Because going into them and not knowing, like, is this important, is it not important? It changes who you prioritize target-wise, and generally speaking, it's good to know what they do. The other part of this that's important to know is that if you have a Doombringer, or you're against a Doombringer, he can devour one of these creeps here, and he'll gain their abilities. So it's very, very important to know what a Doombringer can bring to the table, especially because that's something that you actually will see quite a bit, right? If you see a Doombringer, you will start to notice, like, oh, he's doing something that he doesn't normally do, and it can throw people off because they'll be like, does he have like a lightning ability? Like, I don't remember that. So anyways, that's kind of where they can come from and when you can run into it. And kind of thinking down the line in terms of your Dota progression, this is incredibly important for you to understand because a Helmet Dominator is in many builds. And, besides obviously being a core mechanic behind Enchantress, Chen, and Doomplay, the Helm of the Dominator makes this a very interesting kind of characteristic to have because you can control it, and unlike the old Dota where it had like a technical timer, you can kind of just keep a creep there and you can get a huge boost from it. Even though you may be building towards a Satanic, you may be holding on to this just for a while, and it has a 60-second cooldown, so it's fairly reasonable, and it's very feasible that you will have this in your build somewhere. And you may want to say, hey, you know what, I can take advantage of this creep. And even if you can't micro it, even if you're not someone who's confident and is able to say, you know what, I can definitely, do some pro micro here and cast that ability just right, you can still take advantage of the aura ones and kind of like the passive ones, and you'll understand a little bit more as I explain them. But there definitely is a certain kind of merit to knowing these creeps. So without further ado, let's go kind of right into it. I will be probably skipping a couple of creeps here. I probably will forget some. I'll try my best to kind of include as many as I can. You, of course, can look up the Dota 2 Wiki, and I'll put a description link thing for it below, and talk about, you can look into it, and I'll briefly talk about, like, kind of the skills and stuff, but you can look at the in-depth information there. And also, you can look at how much experience and gold they give you for clearing them, if that's what you're actually interested in. So, without further ado, within this grouping here I have, this is what I think represents almost all the abilities from the small camps, right? So it's here for the Radiant, here for the Dire. These guys here, the Vowels, this is the only camp that I think has like 0 merit. I don't know. I don't think they're very useful. They have a poison. I mean, 2 per 10, I don't know. I don't like it very much. I would just suggest Xing them. But the rest of these guys do have some interesting abilities. Number 1 is a Kobold Foreman. This guy has a AoE movement speed aura that's 4% less than a phase boots, but it's still a huge difference. As you can see here, I'm 336, and if I move away, I'm going to go down to 300. That's a sizable movement speed increase, and that can be a huge game changer, and it will stack with your Yashas, it'll stack with your,
as you say,
I don't know, Django, or not Django, Drum of Endurance, stuff like that. So like, it's going to be something that you can definitely take advantage of, and it'll be a huge boon. If you're Doombringer and you're running phase boots W, very, very interesting choice. Can definitely be a game player here. Kind of moving right along, this is a Harpy Stormcrafter. Now, keep in mind as you're going through this that the level of creep that you are up against, with the exception of Helmet Dominator, there is like kind of a mitigation factor that you can't take over super strong creeps right away. So the low level creeps are important because that's what you can devour early on, that's what you can enchant Persuade early on, and that's very important to you, right? So keep in mind that, you might be like, oh, it's damaging and stuff, it's kind of crappy, why don't just take like over the big creeps and stuff like that? It's because you can't do that right away. So kind of going right along, this Harpy here has Chain Lightning, and it's a very weak version of Chain Lightning, but it still is nice considering it has a 4-second cooldown and a 50-second mana cost. So, it may not be the most practical thing on Doom, especially early on because his mana pool doesn't support it really, but it can be a very helpful thing to have. You can see this range, it's humongous, right? And so if you think about Chain Lightning as something that you can get on Chen or Enchantress early on, it can be a great tool for number 1, pushing, number 2, clearing out neutral camps, not cramps, a little bit faster, as well as just being something that can harass people. It's a really great tool. I personally don't get it very often because usually the game goes by fast enough I don't worry about it, but something to keep in mind. This guy is a ghost, or girl, whatever it used to be. This critter has a cold attack, movement and attack speed slow. Now this is very useful if you're stacking things against someone, very, very handy, or chasing someone down. I wouldn't recommend it as like a capture thing for like your Helmet Dominator just because the HP level is a little bit low. It's buffed here because I used Holy Persuasion on it. But you should be a little bit more aware of this guy because, you know, it's underappreciated. I think that there's definitely some things you can pull off with that Frost attack. Very handy. Here is the Hill Troll Priest. Now this guy has a heal, and this is a really weird mechanic. I think I'm going to have to see if I can demonstrate it for you guys. Here, punch me. Punch me. I dare you. Oh god. No, I take it back. I take it back. I take it back. Go away. Shoot. Shoot. Come on, dadgummit. Alright. So what he does is he heals your units for you, right? Heroes, units, it doesn't really matter. But, see that? How it goes off? He's slowly going to start ticking for 15 HP regen, and it can be very, very helpful early game, especially if you want to kind of support your lane passively. You drop off one of these guys if you're lucky, and then you have a great healing, a great way to sustain your lane. And it's not bad at all. It's actually a really solid creep to keep in the background here. It's very weak, so you have to keep that in mind. But you can, you know, drop it off back here, watch your lane kind of keep itself alive. Very, very handy. Definitely not a bad thing to have, especially if you're pushing. But that kind of wraps it up for the little creeps. So let's talk about kind of the bigger creeps in the game. I'm going to actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch, I'm going to combine the middle and large creeps. Because there's a handful of ones I think are very useful. Disclaimer, these Wildkin here. This guy summons a tornado, and he has a toughness aura, which is, you know, formerly known as devotion aura. It'll give you this AoE armor bonus, which can be helpful. But most people think of his tornado whenever they get this guy. This is a channeled ability. I would highly recommend staying away from it as Doombringer. But this can be helpful for taking out neutral camps because it won't draw aggro from the right distance. But in general, I don't like the Wild Wing or the Wildkin or whatever you want to call it. I just don't like it. So I'm going to kind of bypass that. What I do like, on the other hand, are these guys. This guy's completely worthless. This guy, however, he starts off with a whopping 1,100 HP. And this stomp is a 25% movement and attack speed slow, as well as lasting for 3 seconds. And this thing is amazing. It's like, think of a Slardar bash, except it slows. And it does a fair bit of damage, considering. And this guy's a brawler. Like, he can stay in the fight. It's awesome. I highly recommend this guy. Moving right along. These wolves here, the little ones have critical strike, but the big one has a critical strike as well, in addition to having pack leader's aura. That's a 30% bonus damage increase, and that can be a huge game changer. Again, one of the auras that can keep around you with the Helmet Dominator. Very handy, very useful. Highly recommend the Alpha Wolf if you're kind of wandering around. Doombringer will get the crit as well if you eat him, so definitely something to keep in mind. Here we have the satyrs. Now, there's also this large satyr. This guy has a shockwave, not very useful, just shoots out a line of damage, not very great. You can use it to poke and stuff, but most people think of it as Unholy Aura, which it's only HP regen now, it's not Unholy Aura anymore. So it's kind of so-so, considering it's a level 6 creep, so, you know, I wouldn't really lose sleep over it. But these little ones are what I think is interesting. This guy has a mana burn. Now, considering the cost and considering the cooldown, this guy can be really useful on a Doom, or really great for a Chen, Enchantress, or even like if you get an early Helmet Dominator. This thing can really mess up a lane, especially if you're up against like strength heroes that don't have an intelligence pool for mana. I mean, this can wreck their ability to cast any of their skills. So it's a pretty handy creep to keep in mind in terms of you run by them and say, oh, you know what, I can take over one, and I'm in the laning phase, I want to kind of harass them. This is a very strong choice. In addition, the little satyr, the satyr banisher, this guy's a purge. This is very similar to the Diffusal Blade in that it gives you this slow that can remove debuffs from allies, buffs from enemies, and also does damage to summon units. It doesn't one-shot the Warlock Golem, don't ask. But yeah, it's a pretty handy thing. That slow is pretty sizable too. So it's definitely nothing to really, you know, cast off and ignore.
I send
see if
you
I
home.
can't. Oh no! Oh, dadgummit! I killed him too fast. All right, let's see here. Let's see if I can have a demonstration of this purge. Come here. But see that? See that slow? It's a sizable slow. You can see it slowly coming back to full speed. That slow can be absolutely devastating. So definitely keep this guy in mind. He's very handy, very useful. This centaur, this is one of the ones that spawned the larger creep camps. This guy has a swiftness aura, which is basically a free gloves of haste for everyone in the aura. It's another 900 aura. And he also has a Slardar stomp, basically. Stomp. It doesn't do damage, really. But what it does do... What is going on? Oh. What it does do is it stuns heroes for 2 seconds, creeps for 3. And that stun is just humongous. Like, it is terrible. And you will see Chens, you'll see Enchantresses, who try to gather up kind of like a cluster of these centaurs. And they will basically run at you, and they'll try to chain stun you. There is a creep that I don't see here. It's a troll dude, and he will throw a net on you, which I don't have here for you guys to see. But in conjunction with this troll's net, it can be a huge, huge boon to you. Let me see if I can turn on my cheats and get lucky here. But this centaur stomp is really, really handy. I mean, really, really handy. It's kind of ridiculous how handy it is.
Faithless one.
I'm gonna see if I can't get the spawn to happen.
As you say.
But yeah, talking about the troll though, the troll that I'm looking for, he has the ability to cast a net, which I believe is physical, so it'll kind of lock down anyone.
Yes.
And it also has the ability to summon undead, little skeleton minions from corpses. Now, it spawns 2 of those guys, they last for 40 seconds apiece. They're not really meant for like doing actual like heavy damage or anything like that, but they're designed for helping to push a lane, you know. Oh, there they are.
Your top tower
And
is under attack.
kind of getting that done. So I'll show you this
Obelisk, guide me.
So these guys, very handy for pushing a lane. Not terribly useful for like attacking
Your
people.
top tower
They can
is
be used to
under
block
attack.
because they have like an awkwardly large box.
Your
But
top tower has fallen.
that's that. And this net, of course, very handy.
So I go.
You can use it to kind of ensnare someone, which can be a huge pain in the rear. Oh.
Yes.
So you see here. And that lasts a fair bit, so that can ruin someone's day. And that snare also breaks channels, so keep that in mind. So another great neutral creep to keep in mind on. Now, there is one thing of caution. The medium creep camps can spawn golems. Golems are magic immune, so they can't be targeted by magic spells. I do want to caution you about that. So don't go too crazy with it and expect to be able to do major work there. But other than that, guys, there is the Ogre Magi. This guy, there's nothing really notable about him except for the fact that he has a frost shield. The frost shield can be a huge boon for those heroes that have very low armor amounts at the beginning, but again, it's like Lich's armor. It's useful, but frankly, you probably don't need it that terribly badly, so I wouldn't lose sleep over it. But anyways, guys, these creeps, as kind of like last note, sorry, for last notes, they respawn every 1 minute. They start from the 30-second marker in the game, and they respawn every full minute after that. So, you know, it starts at 30, it goes up, and you'll see them like at 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, stuff like that. So keep that in mind. Very, very helpful to know that. Of course, these guys have the same thing. And yeah, in general, like keep your eyes up for these neutral creeps. Hopefully this helps you kind of utilize the jungle a little bit better and see it in a new light.
As Obelisk directs.
And other than that, you know, happy hunting, and hopefully things go well for you guys. Have a great day. Bye.